Hey everybody, welcome to another preview of our round 16 clash with the Hawks. I found the enemy fan channel and I've got Matt from Talking Hawks. Hello mate, welcome.
Thanks, Terry. Yes, the enemy this week, but geez, you've been our friends over the journey. You've made us feel good sometimes, you blue baggers. So, mate, it's good to have a chat this week.
It's so true. I was talking about it the other day and I was saying I've gone through the last 5 or 6 times that I've actually physically covered the games that we've played against the Hawks. It's just been nothing but uncomfortable, even when we've won.
It's good like that. In some regards, it's always a bit nervy, but I don't know, always quietly. We did our podcast this week, our live streams. I've said I'm I wouldn't be surprised either way with this result, but we'll get into it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it has a bit of that to it. There's a few elements to the mix. There's the 0-8 record for teams coming off the bye this year, which is fascinating. But I guess from your lens, what's the Hawthorn story? Because from my lens looking in, I like what I see. Even when you lose, like you're obviously building towards the future. There's a clear plan. You've got a modern day coach. So how do you sit as a supporter, and what's your take on the club?
Yeah, if you divide the first half of the season, into two, it's almost like different things were being tested. You saw I guess, game plan being attempted and sometimes executed well. You'd get the glimpses, sometimes not. And probably in the second, chunk of that first half, I've seen that starting to come together more and more. So it's consistency of giving some young blokes a crack. There's some surprises like Connor Nash that have just sort of come out of nowhere and are really giving you overs compared to what probably most people would have expected. That midfield group's starting to click a little bit. So there's a quiet confidence that we're growing and building. And I'm probably second half of the season, I was a little bit shattered. I hope we'd reverse that bye round slump that everyone had, but I think we'll upset a few on the way home.
Yeah, there is that feel about the Hawks. I don't know, there's just an organization about the way that you play. Even when it's not going your way, there seems to be an organization about the way you go about things on the field. And like I said, I mean, I'm not watching the Hawks as deeply as what I'm watching the Blues, but yeah, can't help but be impressed.
It's coming together slowly. I think that the one thing that stands out to me is we haven't necessarily had I think we've tried to use the corridor some games, and it's been a little bit more, I think, backing in the team and trusting playing to their strengths and trusting their judgment. And we're seeing that in the last probably 4 weeks, where just strings of handballs. It's not necessarily hearing that we're even training to try and move the ball forward like that, but out of D50, it's getting up the ground nicely, and the opposition just can't respond quick enough because the hands and the reactions there. So yeah, they're the sorts of things with chemistry that I'm liking the looks of.
What's your take on the Blues? Because the Blues supporters, we've covered every single possible angle that there is to cover about what could be the issue. So what's your take from the unemotional side?
Look, there's some incredible talent and probably a little bit of form that you'd want more from in terms of certain players. It's just a puzzle a little bit, like why this year it's not fully clicking from my personal perspective. And, I think there's the question mark. You're listening to the media. Is that a disconnect with Bossy and personnel? But I think they're going to work through it. And I don't think it would surprise a lot of supporters if the Blues just suddenly click and you get a really good run on, whether that's this second half of the season or into next year, I don't know. But there's some absolute weapons that you kind of worry about, because you've got some guys that can really break your game open. And Mackay, your midfield, it's some real jets. So yeah,
it's so strange. It's so strange for me on this side watching what's happened. I think last year we probably almost gave him a bit of an out because of the injury list in double digits by round 8 or 9, whatever it was. Still, finished, in a heartbreaking way, but they gave it their all, and then I don't think we've been that injured this year at all, and it's just been a form thing. And the best I have is it's almost like history is repeating itself. We have to go through this patch. We have to prove that we're not going to sack the coach, or we're not going to take that option out for the players, and that's my best guess. But I don't know. Something's not adding up. I just don't know what it is yet. I don't know what the equation is that's not adding up.
Was it Parkin maybe that came out and just sort of said, just back off, give it a little bit of time, so a man close to both of our club's hearts, who's being celebrated at the moment. So I'm all for that. You sort of commit to that longer term, and hopefully, from your club's perspective, that backing from the top, to the coach and through that footy department, it's just consistency, and you do need a few things to go your way. I think you've got the ticker in, Paddy Cripps and others to lead it. So, my brown and gold view of your blue baggers.
Interesting. So going into this week, who is coming in or potentially coming into the side from the Hawthorn side of things?
I think what we did see was Ward had a cracking game at VFL. So I'd say he's 38 possessions. I think he's a shoe-in probably. I don't think too many others are really banging the door down right now, and there's been a fairly settled list. So I think they'll just back it up, and that'll probably be the one change, I think, and that might be it could be a wingman, possibly Bramble, I'd guess.
What's been the most pleasing part and the most challenging part for this year for you?
Sicily being out, in a word. That really hurts us, and that's probably when I think, the Blues are probably a chance this week. It's because of the hole that he leaves. But last week you get Blake Hardwick, and I think he had high 30s possessions as well, and Will Day just sort of chime in. So Day's been universal. I touched on Connor Nash earlier. Those boys are doing really well. Seeing Warple sort of come back in terms of form and consistency after a shoulder injury and the like, that's been really encouraging, because it's hard you've had all these young boys that were running through, even Dylan Moore struggling to get time through the middle, but his last few years have been significant. And I think you almost watch a multi-dimensional capability being built into your team. Like, well, I want to be able to move you into this position or that position if you're not performing, and still play to your strengths. So sad to see Mitch Lewis not start off initially, because he's, I think, a big threat in any opposition's eyes. And I think the back six been at times challenged. There's a little bit of inexperience in there. So it's all about the process, really. Boring answer, but that's excited me, that the fact we're just putting the games in to these young kids.
No, I've actually learned, it's taken me 32 years, but I've learned to love the process.
We're still doing this.
I just got to stop focusing on the sugar hits and start to get that consistency. So it's not a boring answer at all. I think the right process is probably the one that we want to find ourselves on. So what's the next layer?
If you can fall in love with the boring stuff, though, Terry, that's it's like, I look for Hawks are down at the moment on the rise slowly. How long that will take, let's see. But you have to look at the little optics. What are the little incremental things? What is consistent? And it might be down to individual players, but is it which line's starting to perform or click? And right now, I'd love our rucks to be doing a bit better, but they're really inexperienced, so they probably be challenged again this week. They really lowered their colours last week. So.
So that's the next layer, you think, for the Hawks?
Next layer in rucks in particular, or what?
I think just the development, like from your lens, what you've done is what you've done so far. What's the next layer in your eyes?
I see the club continuing to give kids ideally a few games in a row. If they get a little window because someone's form drops or there's injuries, you might get 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And the ruthlessness of, even we're managing our contracts really tightly. So I think you've got to perform. there's this internal pressure, but it's coming from the youth that are really driving it, that competitiveness, which revitalizes the older fellas. So not that there's that many older fellas in our list, but I think that's just going to it's more games and the chemistry. So that's really, and the challenge week to week. Are we bringing intensity? Are we following game structure, structures in game? Are we making decisions and adapting games, game plan mid-quarter and things like that? So they're the little evolutions that I'm looking out for.
Yeah. Now, Talking Hawks, tell us about the story of it, because been a few years we've been working parallel, focusing on our clubs. But what's the story with Talking Hawks? How did it all begin, and where are we at?
Yeah, thanks. It's 4 years in now. So our mate Brad was overseas working for many years and used to go to the footy before we had the sort of coverage that we do these days. So we used to just, as I went to the footy with my brother religiously, we would be messaging pre-game, during game, post-game, and we just enjoyed, I guess we're a little bit full of ourselves and thought, you know what, I think we kind of got a good idea about the players and the club and what's going on. Maybe others would like to hear this sort of conversation. So one day, Shad set up his studio and whatnot, and we said, mate, do you want us to help you cut your teeth on this? So we, just before the pandemic hit, we started setting up in his studio and then adapted to doing it live streams online. So yeah, today it's weekly articles on talkinghawks.com, a couple of podcasts. That's just skyrocketed since we launched that this year, and our live streams have been part of our staple. So we cover Box Hill, got some really good access to the club, getting along to a few press conferences and things like that. We sponsor a few players, Denver Granger Barras, John Newcomb, Jazz Fleming. So yeah, it's a way that we try to get the fans connected with the club. And any Hawks fans listening, if you haven't heard of us, check it out. And if you're interested to get behind players, we give some really cool experiences, both online and in person, with the club and with the players.
How do you see the evolution of all of this?
Maybe you and I will be just controlling a few more eyeballs as the years go on, and having some really good banter between our fans and supporting our clubs. And I just see a real surge in fans that really follow their club and know their club intimately, and the passion that can come through. I think when it's really aligned with the club's values and what you're trying to do, I just see, the ability to connect fans, and this is a little bit my personal passion, but that are interstate, that are overseas in terms of coverage and time and access, just that it'll be sort of a natural extension of our clubs that we follow and love. So, hopefully things like the AFLW, it'll be significant for us. We're only a couple of years in now, but being able to get our arms around that sort of the women's code, and as a club, it's the family's grown as a little bit of a slower adoption of getting behind the women's game. But I think as a generation grows up with watching the women's sport, all these girls will be coming through, father, daughters, all of that sort of stuff. So it'll be exciting. Hopefully we're in when we move to Dingley, and maybe even Talking Hawks, and be doing some stuff from the studio at the club. You never know.
Never know. Wow. So Sunday, what's the story? What's your game day routine like? What does it look like in your world?
I will be getting there early. Part of the Talking Hawks, when we sponsor some of the players, there's a couple of tickets this week. So that's catered. All of that, they're going to some of our members, that the Talking Hawks members that help sponsor the players. So drop them off. We're driving up, so I'll be there nice and early, around 12, and I should be shuttling up next to probably my brother Chris and Shad. So we'll have a good banter through the game, and usually we'll go with the kids, but this week it's going to be just the boys.
And the game, how do we see it playing out?
Yeah, I think it'll just be chess moves, mate. I think it'll be surges, and I don't think the game will necessarily run away from you guys when we're going well. But look, we have managed to do it against some teams. It wouldn't surprise me if it's under 3 or 4 goals, the end result. I'm going to tip the Hawks by 14. I try to be an optimist realist. So that does need a lot to go right without Sicily. So yeah, just how that's really a pivotal part of the game, how our defence holds up. So it's going to keep coming in. It's just how well we can handle that pressure and rebound from there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch how you guys defend when it's in your inside 50. I think that's a big part of where the game will be won.
Yeah. I there's like I said the word earlier in the chat, but I just see it being uncomfortable no matter what it is. I don't think it's going to be a comfortable day for us, and that's just something I've had to learn to deal with. It is what it is.
How about you, mate? What's the day look like?
I'll get there nice and early, soak up the atmosphere. Love the MCG. It's a different place. We've got roadworks going on the train line, which is next to me, so it takes a little bit longer to get there. A little bit inconvenient, but sitting there on the wing, level 1, and just hope for the best and hope that. I mean, there's just a little bit of hope left for the season. I am an optimist, and so yeah, I just hope that we don't have another week watching what we've watched. It's that execution, that I don't know, disconnection. We saw an improvement against the Suns right before the bye, but it's really hard to say that they found something when it's just one game. So we'll see. My theory about the bye and that every team has lost so far. The reason why I think Carlton's in a different situation is because I think we needed the bye more than anyone. The pressure was just getting to everyone. I think fans, players, staff, administrators, everyone. So I think a week off was what everybody needed, and hopefully it just levels and mellows them out a bit, and they're able to focus. But there's a genius up there in the Hawks coaching box who he's remarkable. So yeah, I do think the chess comparison is a good one.
What are you expecting from the Blues this week? What's important for your guys to get a win?
Get a win. Yeah, win. Got to win. I mean,
what do you have to do, though, to get that win? What's key?
What do we have to do to get the win? Well, we've got to use the ball well. I'm really curious to see when we're challenged. I always am. When we're challenged, how do we fight our way through it and work our way through it? One thing I've noticed this year is just the ability to make decisions on the fly. It just hasn't seemed to be there. Or when something breaks down ahead of the play, not knowing what to do in the moment. So I think it comes down to our decision making, knowing that the Hawks will throw something unique at us all day. And I think it's that decision making. Ultimately, I think when you put the teams on paper next to each other, I think the Carlton list looks good, but that's the case for a lot of the weeks. It doesn't really mean much once the ball's bounced. So yeah, I think the execution part and the decision making part for me is what's going to be the difference for Carlton anyway.
And is there anything you're seeing across the season? Is there a particular quarter where things can drop, or is there any trends around that sort of thing? Because we did have particular quarters that were causing us issues, but I see us slowly addressing that.
I feel like it's been a quarter, like a different quarter almost every week. I think early in the year it was the third, then it moved to the fourth. Then we had a poor second a couple of weeks in a row. And so it's just across the board. And I think what's been happening as well is early in games, we've seen them start to make mistakes, and then it starts compounding and it starts spreading. And then it almost feels like it's just too big of a task, or it looks like it's too big of a task for them to work their way out of it. So yeah, it's a mental game. I think the skill and the talent's all there. I think most people that I speak to who are on the other side will say the same thing. They talk about the midfield and the talent and the twin towers in the forward line.
Yeah.
So
100% it's all there. It's just so much of sport at a high level is just between the ears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting that chemistry right, getting everyone on that same, singing from the same hymn book. It's a special thing when it happens.
Well, I'll wait patiently for it, mate. I'll wait.
Mate, and you've seen a little bit of success come your way, but it should be a good matchup this week.
No, it should be. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, and appreciate you setting aside 20 minutes for us, and wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Not so much this week. And see you next time.
Understandably, mate. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. And look forward to catching you again.